Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay, here to talk a little bit about the incident that happened yesterday, the train incident, the tragedy in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, on the 36th Street train station involving. Uh, they caught the man today. They caught the guy today, Frank James. This individual, he's made videos on YouTube. He's a he's a they call him the Doom Prophet. Like he has made some apocalyptic uh, videos on YouTube, really bleak stuff. And there was several warning signs about him. But what it really says to me is how sick the world is right now, how hurt the world is right now, and how much of in need of love and how much in need of God the world is right now. Because we have people in our society, especially after 21 and 20 and 21, and even the early part of 22, that are mentally ill. You know what I mean? They have problems with stress, problems with their job, problems with feeling marginalized, problems with feeling unappreciated. And they're taking it out and lashing it out on other people. And to simply understand the psychology of what is going on with an individual, Frank, like such as Frank James, is not wrong. Is people point to these people, these assailants of these horrible, horrific crimes, and they say, no, no mercy for them. Lock them up and throw away the key. They deserve death, right? Bring back the death penalty in New York City for these animals, these scoundrels. No, that's not the approach. The approach is to understand why it happens so that it never happens again. What was it about Frank James that propelled him to do the things that he did? Now, what I always hate about these mass shootings is that the victim, whoever the victim is, however he, well, it's never she, but it's always a guy. You know what I mean? But however he is depicted in the media, whatever socially constructed box he falls into, like, is he young? Is he old? Is he black? Is he white? Is he a Muslim? Is he a non-Muslim? You know, people will use that category to run with it and to make it a big social issue, already increasing our social divide and our societal alienation that we already face. People will look at Frank James right now. Okay, take Frank James for example. This is a 62-year-old African American male. Doesn't fit the profile of a mass shooter at all. One, most mass shooters are not African American. Most mass shooters and serial killers, in fact, 99.9% are white, and most of them are young. Frank James, not a young guy, doesn't even fit the real profile of a criminal at all, really, because he's very, you know, he's older. So not somebody that they were looking for. People are castigating the police right now, the police commissioner and Mayor Adams, because they're like, oh well, he was on the loose for like 2 or 3 days and they didn't catch him. They were looking for something completely different. They're looking for a group of young people, youths, not somebody like Frank James, an older man. So, but being as it may, his ethnicity, they're going to use that to now turn it around like a Rubik's Cube, turn it around and make it all about ethnicity. Use that to attempt to use the police force, the New York City Police Department, as a weapon against African Americans and against minorities. And they're going to use his case as the Cassius Belli for the war against African Americans in New York City. On It's going to dwarf what Mayor Giuliani did. What Mayor Giuliani's initiatives, anti-black initiatives in the 1990s, that's going to be nothing compared to what they're about to do right now. Because for the first time ever, now they've gotten the federal government involved, and Frank James is classified as a terrorist. So ask any Muslim American what happened after 9/11 when all of a sudden a whole group of people were categorized as terrorists, right? And as dangerous extremists. Not necessarily. So everything somebody in that group does is now motivated by an ideology, even though Frank James may have not been motivated by an ideology at all. Frank James's videos don't indicate that he was motivated by a specific ideology at all or a specific political belief. But because he is what he is, because of racism, now his whole profile is going to be switched around. Same thing what they did with all the right wingers. Okay, a person on the right, a person that seemed to be having political leanings that are conservative. All of a sudden now you want to castigate all conservatives and make all conservatives seem as though they have this and they're all, swastika, Confederate flag waving um, killers. So they got, or what they did to Mike Xavier Johnson after those police shootings, which were in retaliation to the Anton Sterling and Philando Castile murders in 2016. Now, New York City is going to do the same thing here. They're going to switch it around and make it entirely racial, make it entirely, okay, he's a black nationalist. So now they're going to use this as a reason to come after black nationalist organizations and even groups of African conscious individuals, Pan Africanists, that are organizing. It's going to stop Pan Africanists from organizing. It's going to stop black gun clubs from organizing, all because of this man and assuming that this man has a political agenda, which he may not have a political agenda. He may just be a disturbed man, but they're not going to give him that leeway because he's not going to be taken as just a lone gunman that was just crazy in his own right. He's going to be taken as a symbol for the war on black people that New York City is about to engage in. So it's going to get really ugly out there for people, and revenge of the Frank James shooting is going to be, the reason that the police in New York City are going to become militarized, that the police in New York City are going to become uh, killers, assassins of people of color. And then they're going to say, and this is another thing that they're going to do because they got Mayor Adams in office, right? They're going to say, well, this is justified because, and this might be one of the things they'll say, even though Frank James is older and I doubt he listens to drill music. Remember, Mayor Adams a couple of months ago, we did a video about it on our channel. He was launching a war on drill. He might turn around and he might say, Frank James was inspired by drill music. So this is why we got to go after every drill person in the world. And nobody can accuse the New York City Police Department of racism now because they got a black guy at the helm. This is how superficial people think about these issues. They just think in terms of, your group identity and your group dynamics when it goes deeper than that. In reality, we're all really individuals. Yes, we function in groups because society is built on that, right? And yes, when we fight against a jump. See how crazy New York is? It made me even jump. But anyway, yes, we fight against that, and we have to fight that with that because that's what the other side. That's what the discriminationists recognize. They recognize this group dynamics, but in reality, we're all individuals. And Frank James's actions shouldn't be used as justification to go against um, black and brown people in the city, but we know it will. We've seen this before. We've seen this in the era of Koch and before when New York City was heavily violent, you know? It's going to be used as justification to bring back stop and frisk, and even probably worse, draconian laws that are going to target people of color because of this. So what Frank James has done is not only fucked it up for himself. If he was trying to commit some kind of revolutionary act, he completely failed because Sunset Park, Brooklyn, the train in 36th Street is filled with people of color as well. Working class people trying to get to work, not individuals trying to, um, oppress him in any sort of way. But now he's done this and he's made it worse for any type of freedom of expression in terms of political consciousness and, you know, um, advocacy for people of color. Just like when right wing groups do this, um, it makes it bad for even the most moderate of right wingers. Same thing with Muslims. Now, because we've seen this happen, we've seen this play out plenty of times for the past 23 years. Since incidents like this have been happening in Columbine, Colorado in 1999, we talked about the formation of groups in the 90s, my 90s nostalgia video. We talked about that. And one of the things we forgot to mention was the Columbine shooting when Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold walked into their school and killed multiple people in 1999. And that was the formation of a group. And they were forming around Marilyn Manson's music and around the Leonardo DiCaprio movie, Basketball Diaries. And because of that was used as a catalyst for the media to attack video games and to attack aspects of youth culture. Remember, Eminem said, they're blaming the Maryland and the heroin. Where were the parents at? But look where it's at, middle America. So we've seen this happen before. And then after 9/11, of course, Islam became the blame. Islam became the catalyst. The 7/7 bombings, the Madrid bombings, the San Bernardino shootings, always Islam. And then right-wing political persuasions, not necessarily extremists. We're not talking about extremists. We're not talking about neo-Nazis or Ku Klux Klans or white nationalists or any sort of thing. But still, same thing with BLM. BLM was just a benign organization advocating on behalf of people of color that were killed by police, like Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown. But what ended up happening? Mike Xavier Johnson, a person who was mentally disturbed, a person who, was not all there, ended up, retaliating for the killings of Anton Sterling and Philando Castile. So because of that, the hammer came down hard on Black Lives Matter, and we didn't see the return of it until the George Floyd incident in 2020. So now with this, they've had enough of it. Now the federal government wants to come in and they want to use a politician in blackface. So it makes it look like the city isn't that racist. Oh, well, see, we can't, the powers that be will say, well, we can't be that racist because we got a black mayor at the helm, but so what? So what? They're always going to use one, as the speech that Malcolm X gave about the field slaves and the house slaves. They're always going to use one of those house slaves to come down hard on any sort of movement. And the new shit that they're going to come against, it might not even be related to Frank James. It might not even be related to anything he was trying to do. You know what I mean? Because I don't think he had a racial motivation. I don't think he had a political motivation at all. You know what I'm saying? I don't. And people could say, oh, well, you're kowtowing to it. You only call out racial animosity when it goes one way. No, I don't. When I think somebody is saying a provocative racial thing on my channel, despite I get no love on it, I call it out either way. If it's somebody that's African American, I have a lot of African American allies heavily invested in African American political consciousness. That's true. But I also have a right wing bend to some of my beliefs, including the Second Amendment. But And of course, too, myself, I'm Hispanic. So when when somebody is saying something that is inappropriate, when somebody is saying something that is complete bullshit that I feel is a racial attack on another group, and it happens to be from somebody of color to somebody of a different ethnicity, I call them out and say it. I called out WAC 100 against Tres in that whole shit because I thought that was bullshit. That was an example of exclusion, of exclusionary politics. I call out people for anti-LGBT politics. So I don't have a bias. I call out the left and I call out the right and I call out all types of groups. But I don't think Frank James was motivated by that. Because if he was, why would Sunset Park, Brooklyn be the place that he would go? A neighborhood that is historically Hispanic and Asian. You could say, well, okay, there's been a rash of anti-Asian hate crimes in the city since 2020. That's true. But he didn't make no manifesto. In none of his videos did he indicate that he was specifically targeting Asian Americans in this. I believe this was just him being, he was a little off. He was a little crazy, 62 years old, and I understand he has some combat experience as well. And it could be an example of PTSD, but they're not going to give the guy a break. They're going to completely turn this into a racial issue, and they're going to completely use it as a catalyst for war against minorities and people of color in the city. So be prepared. NYC is crazy, man. The war is coming. Peace. Don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. You agree if you disagree. To me, I feel like it's only going to get worse from here. And again, um, best wishes to the people, the 13 people that were harmed in this incident. Love. And remember, what individuals do doesn't reflect on the whole group. One bad apple does never spoils the whole bunch. Peace.